interesting designs.
Oh, yeah.
You had your own stencil and everything.
Very good. And it's weird, because I wasn't...
We brought to China a Western ideology mild in its political implications, but still unmistakably Western, and while that perspective had value for them, allowing China to show it wasn't as isolated as the world believed. Another story was unfolding far from those discussions. It is the story of Rachel Zegler, a name that once glowed with promise and undeniable potential. She was expected to carve her place in Disney's legacy as the fresh new face of the Snow White reimagining. With her musical talent, rising stardom, and natural charisma, she seemed destined to breathe new life into the story that helped build Walt Disney's empire. But as 2025 approached, her meteoric rise suddenly shifted. A series of unexpected missteps transformed Zegler from a celebrated young star into a polarizing and controversial figure. A career that once brimmed with possibility became tangled in backlash, online outrage, and what critics labeled a full-blown woke meltdown. The whispers of fading relevance grew louder, leaving Disney struggling to save both the film and its embattled lead actress from mounting chaos. This was supposed to be her defining moment, a role that would secure her place in Hollywood. Instead, it became a cautionary tale about what happens when a cherished legacy is mishandled. When Disney announced its live-action remake of Snow White, reactions were mixed, curiosity blended with concern. The studio had already reimagined Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and The Little Mermaid, each sparking debate but still drawing massive global audiences. But Snow White was different. It wasn't just a classic. It was the classic, the film that launched Disney's entire animation empire and symbolized infinite storytelling potential. Any attempt to remake it carried enormous creative and commercial stakes. Disney's vision was to modernize the timeless story, honoring the original while updating it for a new generation. On paper, it sounded promising. But early cracks formed quickly, and Rachel Zegler found herself at the center of the storm. Her interviews drew immediate attention, and not in the way Disney hoped. Her remarks about the 1937 original came off as dismissive, even mocking. She described the classic as outdated and irrelevant, suggesting that the old Snow White lacked real depth. At first, many fans brushed it off as youthful enthusiasm, a young actress eager to redefine an iconic role. But as she repeated and intensified her comments, her tone shifted from confident to confrontational. Her claims that modern audiences deserved a real story, and that the damsel in distress narrative should be left behind pushed many longtime Disney fans away, sparking a backlash that only grew with each new interview. To many lifelong fans, Zegler's comments felt less like an attempt to thoughtfully reinvent a classic character and more like a direct mockery of everything that made the original film timeless. What should have been a respectful reimagining instead came across as dismissive of the very foundation of Disney's storytelling legacy. The backlash that followed was both swift and brutal. Within hours, clips of her interviews were circulating across social media, stitched together with sarcastic edits, highlighted quotes, and commentary that emphasized her apparent disregard for the 1937 masterpiece. These short clips spread like wildfire, turning into a digital avalanche that was impossible to stop. The moment audiences sensed disrespect toward the classic, a firestorm erupted. Hashtags like #BoycottSnowWhite, #NotMySnowWhite, and #RespectTheOriginal trended for days at a time, dominating timelines on TikTok, YouTube, X, and Instagram. Comment sections flared with arguments, fan debates became heated, and creators released breakdown videos dissecting her tone, her expressions, and her words. While many people agreed that updating old stories is sometimes necessary and even healthy, Zegler's comments struck an emotional nerve. Her tone felt condescending, as if she was speaking down to generations of fans who had grown up loving Snow White, people who had previously supported Disney's efforts toward inclusion and modernization suddenly felt insulted and pushed away. Very quickly, Zegler became a lightning rod for criticism. Everything she said or did turned into a new point of outrage. Detractors labeled her arrogant, ungrateful, and shockingly unaware of the impact her words would have. Online critics framed her as the embodiment of Hollywood's widening disconnect from its own audience, a prime example of what happens when studios chase cultural trends instead of respecting beloved traditions. Her name evolved from being associated with rising stardom to becoming an ongoing symbol of the industry's controversial attempts to reinvent classics. Disney's marketing team found themselves trapped in a situation they had never truly prepared for. Usually promoting a major Disney film is easy. Highlight the star's charm, lean into nostalgia, release beautiful visuals, and watch excitement build effortlessly. But this time, every promotional decision felt like navigating a minefield. The studio shifted its entire strategy, scrambling to emphasize the magical elements of the film, the enchanted forest, the musical sequences, the whimsical atmosphere, while quietly minimizing the modern updates that had triggered such intense backlash. They tried softer messaging, cheerful visuals, and safe talking points. But nothing worked. The narrative surrounding Zegler's remarks had already consumed the public's perception of the movie. Every new trailer release, every poster reveal, every snippet of footage only intensified the skepticism. The audience wasn't watching with excitement, they were watching with suspicion, ready to pounce on anything that confirmed their fears. The controversy overshadowed every marketing effort, making it nearly impossible to generate genuine enthusiasm for the film. Then the production leaks started flooding the internet and things spiraled even further. Reports revealed that Disney's changes were even more drastic than fans had imagined. The iconic seven dwarfs, some of the most memorable and beloved characters in animation history, had been replaced by a group of mystical woodland creatures, or a diverse ensemble with no clear connection to the original. This decision alone reignited the outrage. Fans saw it as a fundamental misunderstanding of what Snow White represents. Early test screenings only deepened the disappointment. Viewers described the chemistry among the cast as awkward and unconvincing, leaving early audiences confused, unimpressed, and unsure of Disney's vision. On top of that, rumors began circulating about chaotic rewrites, constant script changes, and internal disagreements. Industry insiders claimed the film's budget had skyrocketed past $300 million, leading critics and fans alike to accuse Disney of irresponsibly throwing money at a project they never needed to reinvent in the first place. Every leak, every rumor, every insider report reinforced the belief that this remake was a misguided attempt to fix something that was never broken. Meanwhile, Rachel Zegler's public image continued to crumble. Social media showed her no mercy. Memes mocking her interviews spread rapidly. Reaction videos and commentary channels dissected her every word, every gesture, every attempt at clarification. What she hoped would be explanations were interpreted as defensive, condescending, or out of touch. Instead of calming the storm, each clarification only poured more fuel onto the fire. In a matter of months, she went from being viewed as a promising young talent to one of the most divisive figures in a matter of months. She went from being viewed as a promising young talent to one of the most divisive figures in pension Sieges and Hatter needs. She went from being viewed as a promising young talent to one of the most divisive figures in Hollywood, an example of how quickly public perception can shift in the digital age. When Zegler dismissed her critics by telling them to grow up and get with the times, the comment did not calm the storm and intensified it. That single remark solidified the growing perception that she was completely out of touch with Disney's core audience. What began as a debate about artistic direction turned into a full cultural clash. The controversy reached a breaking point so severe that even some of her earliest defenders began questioning whether her approach was truly about progress or simply antagonizing the very fans Disney relied on. Was she genuinely pushing for modernization? Or was she carelessly alienating the people who had adored the original for generations? For Disney, the stakes could not have been higher. Snow White was not just another release, it was a cornerstone of the company's identity, a symbol of its legacy, and the film that defined the birth of the Disney empire. The success or failure of this remake represented far more than box office numbers. It was a test of Disney's ability to honor its roots while shaping its future. A flop of this scale threatened to stain the company's reputation as the world's guardian of timeless fairy tales. Merchandising opportunities, theme park tie-ins, future branding strategies, and long-term franchise potential were all tightly connected to the film's success. But as public sentiment grew increasingly hostile, the likelihood of a triumphant release shrank by the day. Behind closed doors, the studio scrambled to contain the fallout. Reports leaked of reshoots, rewrites, and desperate post-production overhauls. Some insiders claimed Disney was reconsidering its earlier decisions and quietly attempting to bring back the Seven Dwarfs through expensive CGI additions. Others suggested the dialogue was being reworked to soften the modern messaging and repair the damage done by Zegler's interviews. But to fans, the efforts felt too little, too late. The public had already formed a firm opinion, and the perception of Snow White 2025 as a misguided, overly politicized, tone-deaf remake was locked in. As the controversy spiraled, Rachel Zegler's career reached a critical crossroads. Once hailed as a breakout star with limitless potential, she now risked becoming a cautionary tale of how quickly Hollywood momentum can collapse. Industry insiders whispered that producers were reconsidering casting her in future films, fearful of the backlash her name might attract. Comparisons to other actors who saw their careers derailed after high-profile controversies such as Katherine Heigl became more frequent and more pointed. Still, not everyone abandoned her. Supporters argued that Zegler had been unfairly targeted by an overly sensitive fan base resistant to change. They acknowledged that the original Snow White, while groundbreaking in 1937, reflected outdated tropes that no longer aligned with modern storytelling. From this perspective, Zegler's intention was not to insult the classic but to breathe new relevance into it for today's audiences. Yet even among her defenders, one omission remained consistent: her delivery had failed. Instead of celebrating the original while explaining the need for a new perspective, her tone came across as dismissive, almost belittling the very foundation of her iconic role. The entire controversy surrounding Snow White 2025 ignited a broader and far more heated conversation about Disney's increasing dependence on live-action remakes. While these projects have been enormous financial successes in the past, their creative value was now under intense scrutiny. Were these films meaningful reinterpretations, or were they hollow, formulaic attempts to capitalize on nostalgia? Each new headline, each leaked detail, each fan reaction pushed that question further into the spotlight. Were these remakes meaningful reinterpretations, or were they hollow, nostalgia-driven cash grabs? The chaos behind the scenes and the backlash ignited by Zegler's remarks exposed a growing truth: tampering with beloved classics is becoming increasingly risky. Fans' patience was wearing thin, and Disney's long-standing formula mixing modern updates with familiar branding was beginning to crack under the pressure. As the film's release date crept closer, speculation reached a fever pitch. Industry insiders, critics, and moviegoers alike debated the same question: would Disney push forward with a wide theatrical release, risking a historic box office disaster? Or would they quietly pivot to a streaming debut in a desperate attempt to minimize financial and reputational damage? No matter the outcome, one reality seemed unavoidable: the harm done to both the Snow White brand and Rachel Zegler's public image felt almost irreversible. Zegler's attempts to defend herself only kept the controversy alive. Each time she responded to critics, the flames reignited, overshadowing every effort by Disney to redirect the narrative. What should have been a celebration of reimagined magic had mutated into a full-scale PR catastrophe. Instead of being remembered as a bold new chapter in Disney history, the project became a case study in miscommunication, miscalculation, and misplaced confidence. Ultimately, the saga of Rachel Zegler and Snow White 2025 stands as a stark, cautionary tale, a vivid reminder of how fragile the balance is when reimagining stories that generations hold close to their hearts. Disrupting that balance can come with steep and lasting consequences. For Zegler, the road to redemption will be long and difficult. Hollywood loves a comeback story, but rebuilding trust with audiences and industry insiders will require thoughtful choices, genuine humility, and time. For Disney, the fallout underscores a deeper truth: legacy properties must be handled with care, respect, and sensitivity. Fans today are more vocal, more discerning, and far less forgiving. The margin for error has never been smaller, and every misstep carries the potential to damage beloved franchises that have defined childhoods for decades. And so the question lingers, echoing across Hollywood: can Rachel Zegler and Disney recover from this debacle? Or will it remain a permanent reminder of the dangers of dismissing the past in the pursuit of reinvention? Only time will reveal the final verdict. But one thing is certain: the lessons learned from Snow White 2025 will shape how studios approach their treasured stories for many years to come.